So to begin with, what I'd like you to do, please, is imagine that you are busy dealing with proposals for your entire department, and then one of your team members, Edward, sends you the following email. Emma, did you get my proposal last week? I haven't heard back and wanted to make sure you hadn't lost it. Call me ASAP, Edward. Okay, now there's a couple of things that I think could be improved with this email. What do you think? Just have a few seconds to think about it, and also see if you agree with my comments also. So, first thing, Emma. Now, to me, that's quite direct, and it's maybe even a little bit forceful. Why not make it a little bit nicer by having "Hi Emma" or "Dear Emma"? It'll make Emma feel better when she opens the email for the first time. Did you get my proposal last week? I haven't, in capital letters, heard back and wanted to make sure you hadn't lost it. Okay, now, did you get my proposal last week? That could have been changed rather than accusing Emma of doing or not doing something. Perhaps it could have been reworded to say something along the lines of, I'm just writing to check to see if you received my email. And rather than using capital letters, which looks like the person is shouting, it looks like Edward is shouting. Fair enough. Maybe Edward is just using capital letters to make sure that Emma doesn't miss it. But even then, you wouldn't highlight in capitals the word haven't. A lot of the time, people do in emails want to highlight certain words. If that is the case, then definitely use maybe a bold text or maybe underline it. Some people maybe even put it in a different color. But capital letters is bad for two main reasons. The first one I mentioned, it looks like Edward is shouting, but also it's harder to read capital letters. People typically read smaller letters or with a capital letter at the beginning of nouns, for example, or the beginning of a sentence. They can read that fairly easily, but if every letter is capital, it's a little bit more difficult for people to read, especially if people start writing the whole line in capitals. So, the third thing I'd like to say is that he's basically accusing Emma of something, that he's accusing her of losing or potentially losing his email. Now, maybe he could be even implying that she's lost things in the past, or that he maybe thinks that she could potentially lose it. Whichever way, he's making an accusation here, which isn't nice. And when Emma receives this, she's not going to be happy. So, as I mentioned, it would be much nicer to say, I'm just checking to see if you received my email. That way, if it's not been received, then perhaps Emma has the option to blame the email system rather than herself. So here she's going to have to justify herself, but if he'd written it in a different way, she could just say, oh, sorry, my email box may have had issues. She could actually divert the blame rather than having to justify herself for whatever reason. Not that she should anyway, or not that she should have to anyway. The last one, call me ASAP with an exclamation mark. Again, exclamation marks, very similarly to capital letters. Not nice, bit forceful. It would be greatly appreciated if you could please call me or contact me as soon as possible. Rather than using ASAP, the acronym, you could write the whole words. Doesn't take much longer, and it looks much nicer, and Emma would be happy. And finish off with some kind gesture. Kindest regards, best regards, many thanks. Even, I look forward to hearing from you. Best regards, Edward, would be much nicer. So just a few things there to begin with. And yeah, please just give it some thought how you maybe are writing, and if there's any ways that you could soften your writing to make your recipient feel happier. And the next one, imagine you have a packed day of meetings today, and then suddenly Edward again, sends an email below. How would you feel? So let's have a look at the email. Yo, did you get my email? Are you coming to the meeting later or not? If so, you need to send me those documents. Cheers, Edward. Okay, so a couple of things here. Yo, obviously, not very formal. It's okay if you're speaking to one of your best buddies, perhaps, but definitely not a professional email. It doesn't really have a place in business. Did you get my email? Here, this is more of an administration tip. Edward's busy. Oh, sorry. Well, just say it's Emma again. So she's busy. It doesn't actually say who it is. It just says yo. But yeah, someone who's busy doesn't want to think, well, which email is Edward referring to? Is it the email that was sent, yesterday, last week, a month ago? Which one is it? Specify which email. It's much better to say the day, the date, the time that the email was actually sent. Similarly, are you coming to the meeting later or not? Which meeting? And the or not part of this sentence or question makes it very demanding and a little bit rude. Are you coming or not? Are you going or not? It would just be better to just, are you coming to the meeting later? You don't need the or not bit because the or not implies not. So yeah, a bit forceful, can be taken as being a bit rude. If so, you need to send me those documents. Make it a little bit nicer. Add please. If so, please send me those documents. Cheers. Get rid of cheers rather than cheers. A lot of people do write cheers. And being British, we say cheers a lot. But usually it's, again, on an informal basis, usually with friends, people you know. Cheers means thanks. But also cheers means like ganbei in China, or where you're like putting your glasses together when you're having a drink. So try and keep that out of business emails wherever possible. Many thanks is nicer. Yeah, I look forward to hearing from you, similar to the last email. So just a couple of tips there. And these are things that I do see fairly frequently. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about during this presentation is how people interpret your message. It's not necessarily how perfectly you write something grammatically, but it's also the tone the tone of your writing. So as best you can, much like when you're giving a presentation, you think about your audience. It's similar here with emailing and writing. Try and decipher how the person might interpret the tone of your message as well as the words itself. And also, if I give an example, for example, if somebody tries to tell a joke to somebody who doesn't understand a joke by email, it can come across as sometimes offensive, sometimes rude, but also it can create confusion. That's an extreme example, but the certain words that you use and the sort of manner of your writing can confuse your tone as it is interpreted by the person who's decoding or the receiver of your message. So really try and put yourself in their shoes and make things as clear and concise as possible. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. How you can do that, ways you can do that, things to look out for to make your writing as easy for people to understand and act on as possible. That way you'll get faster responses and also build better rapport with the people that you're writing to. Now, this is something that I like to discuss whenever I'm talking about communication, and it's called the rhetorical triangle. Whenever you're persuading anybody, and a lot of communication involves huge elements of persuasion, whenever you're looking to do that, always try and remember this triangle, and it'll set you on the right path 9 times out of 10. I'm just going to read the first few sentences for anyone who's looking on a smaller screen. So, rhetoric is the ancient art of using language to persuade. If you use it well, your audience will easily understand what you're saying and will more likely be influenced by it. Rhetoric, the faculty of discovering the means of persuasion in reference to any subject whatsoever. And that was actually a quote from Aristotle. Now, this rhetorical triangle is made up of 3 elements: logos, pathos, and ethos. So Aristotle believed, as do I, that if you have all of these three elements within the triangle, when you're trying to persuade someone, you will be successful if you can do it well. And I'll go into what each of them are in turn. None of this is rocket science, but it is something that you should try and remember if possible, and always try and implement it whenever you're communicating in whatever form. The first one, logos, is logic, message flow and reasoning. So again, I'll read this in case you're on a small device. Logos is the Greek term of logic. It has been made to represent the fact, research, and other message, elements that provide proof or elements to claim. So, in layman's terms, what that means is it's the logical reasoning of the message that you are giving. If something is logical, if it flows nicely, people are more likely to understand it faster, relate to it better, and also absorb it easily if it is logical. Okay, so that's a fairly simple one. The next one, ethos. This comes from the word ethics, and it's credibility. Now, what this actually means is that someone's credibility, or when they communicate the message, they have to have built some form of credibility. For example, if I was trying to give you a COVID-19 injection, but I was dressed in shorts, t-shirt, and a baseball cap on backwards, you probably wouldn't find me as credible as if I was, for example, wearing a doctor's white lab coat, a stethoscope. You would have credibility from what I was wearing. Now, in an email, obviously you can't see the person, but you can draw credibility from the way you write, the vocabulary that you use, the layout of your email, even little things like your signature. So credibility is key. If you were speaking to somebody, again, maybe if you're meeting someone for the first time, they're not going to listen to everything you say until you build that credibility. After you've built that credibility, it's quite possible that they'll believe everything you say. So it's key to building credibility first before you try and influence anyone in any shape or form. And the last one, pathos. This is to do with the emotion. Okay, so it's the Greek term of emotion, and it's been made to represent how an audience feels or experiences a message. Now, this is what I was mentioning before, the tone, but also the perceived emotion that your audience may draw from your message. If you're writing in capital letters, it's obviously going to perhaps aggravate them. So we'll talk about it a little bit later, but just be aware of these three things: how the audience is going to feel, the credibility that you have or that you want to gain from whatever you're writing, and also the logical flow and reasoning. Okay, now these three guys have come up with some fantastic quotes that are extremely relevant, and so I've decided to include them. You can probably recognize the three of them, maybe, maybe not. But anyway, I'll introduce them to you, and also the quotes that they've given. The first guy is Thomas Jefferson, and he said, "The most valuable of all talents is that of never giving two words when one will do." This is something that we're going to be talking about later, how to write concisely. Especially with emailing, it's different to, for example, a Word document. People, their perception of a Word document is usually that they can be long. If you receive an email, though, well, imagine your own when you've received emails in the past. If you receive an email that's a few lines, you'll probably read it quickly. You'll probably action it quickly. If you receive an email that's long and drawn out, then you're probably going to have to, it takes more effort. It'll take you more time to read it, therefore more time to reply. And if you're the writer and you want a quick reply, which would you choose? You want them to reply quickly, so make it shorter. There are certain sentences, and they're very frequent, that people write too much when it could be shorter. So in this course, I'll be showing you how to reduce the word count to make those shorter, and also the layout. But yeah, try and remember that. If you can use one word instead of two, always do, because your recipient will prefer it. The second one is Mark Twain. He said, substitute damn every time you're inclined to write very. Your editor will delete it and the writing will be just as it should be. Now, very is a word similar to basically, I suppose. It's a word, mind you, I do use basically quite a lot. Yeah, very is it's a nothing word. For example, last night I went out for a very nice meal. The service was very good. The restaurant was very clean. It was very moderately priced, and we had a very good time. Now, that doesn't add any value. The word very doesn't add any value to any of that whatsoever. Replacing very would make that so much better. For example, last night I went out for a fantastic meal. The food was delicious. The location was splendid. You know, we had an amazing time. If I use better adjectives instead of very, it's more, well, you can the person receiving it will find it more interesting. It'll paint a picture for them rather than just using very, very, very all the way through. Okay, so make it more animated, but also using different words instead of the word very will be more precise to the exact sort of description that you want to give. Okay, and finally here we have Leela Cocker. You can have brilliant ideas, but if you can't get them across, your ideas won't get you anywhere. And this really is true. For example, if you're someone like, for example, Sheldon from The Big Bang, if anyone's seen that American TV show, Sheldon knows a lot of stuff, and perhaps he's right, but he's not very good at communicating it to other people. Therefore, it's probably to his own detriment. If somebody has great ideas, they need to be able to get them to encode them so that other people can decode them more easily. That way, it will work well for them. And also, the other people will learn more too. So, yeah, try and think of ways that you can increase your ability to empathize with other people to get your message across in a way that they would like so that they can absorb the information better. The next few slides are going to focus on the essentials of business writing. These are the key things, the 101s that everybody should have and should be thinking about when they're writing emails. So let's have a look at the first model. The 5 C's of business content writing. Okay, so first one, clarity. Second one, conciseness. Third is courtesy, completeness, and correctness. So you probably know what all of those words mean, but I'm going to give you some examples and things to look out for to make sure that you are covering all of these 5 C's within your writing. So to begin with, the first one is clarity. Be specific with facts and details. Okay, avoid vague expressions and use familiar words. For example, a bad example would be let's have lunch sometime. Now, why is this bad? Okay, think about it. Well, probably happened to you in the past. Maybe someone has said to you, hey, John, let's have lunch sometime. When does that happen? When does that actually follow through? When will you actually go out for lunch with that person? It's just sometime. It's not very precise. If the suggestion, if the statement or question, would you like to have lunch sometime? It's not very precise. Therefore, you're not going to get a precise response. Especially an email that can be detrimental to you, especially if you want a fast response. It would be better to say, for example, a good example of let's have lunch tomorrow at 12:30 in Blue Frog next to your office. Now, maybe the person can't make it. Maybe they can. Maybe they just say, yeah, that's a great idea. Or maybe they say, well, I don't really like Blue Frog. Or maybe I went to Blue Frog yesterday. I don't want to go there again. Or maybe 12:30 is not the ideal time. But because you've been more specific, you will get a more specific response from them. So when you're requesting any information, especially from people, be more specific. Don't say something like, please send it to me as soon as possible, because what is as soon as possible? It's subjective. If you say, please send this to me before Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Okay, now I've given an example of Thursday at 9 a.m. Maybe the time and the day could be improved for maximum effectiveness. I'll talk about that a little bit later in the course. But here, I just want to mention to be more specific. Definitely give a time. So, for example, if you need it by Friday, at the latest, I would probably say Thursday. Never leave it to the deadline, but always give a time. And the final reason I'd like to give here, or another reason, is that if you just say, please send it to me on Thursday, but you don't give a time, that whole day you might be waiting to get the response until what? Until 9 p.m., 10 p.m., midnight. You won't know when to reply and say, hey, where's that thing I requested? So yeah, give a time. If you give a time in the morning, say if you, maybe 10 a.m., you say, yeah, Thursday 10 a.m. Please have this back to me by then by 10:30 you can send them an email saying, a follow-up email. Hi John, just checking to see if you might be able to send me those documents I requested, and then tell them why. I'll talk about this a little bit later on, how to actually request things. But yeah, give a time as well as a day, and if wherever possible, give the reason why you need it. Because if you give the reason why you need it, it'll make it sort of stick in their mind a little bit more that it's got to be done. And if it doesn't get done, it's maybe going to put you out in some way. So hopefully it'll give them a bit more of a push to get it done for you. Conciseness. Avoid unnecessary explanations, avoid wordiness, repetition, long words. Use simple expressions instead of jargon, and use bullet points. I love bullet points. Now, if you want something in order, then use numbers. If you want to give a list, use bullet points. It makes it easier to see, just like I am using bullet points here on this slide rather than full sentences. Avoid wordiness, repetition, long words. As I mentioned, we're going to be talking about how to make your writing more concise and precise later on. Bad example, I'm not even going to bother reading it, but too many words there. It's a lot of effort for people to read chunks of text like that. So try not to do it. Make it simple. Write it down here. And just to let you know, those green lines mean exactly the same as those 5 lines above it. So yeah, try and write concisely wherever possible, because it's nice for the reader. Okay, now the next one is courtesy. Obviously, being courteous is essential for communication. It's good to be courteous all of the time, whenever possible. Use you language rather than we or I. Be as polite as possible. Avoid abbreviations like he's, we're, he'd. I'll talk about the last one first. Now, again, thinking about your reader, he's or we're or he'd, you're making them do unnecessarily thinking, and for example, he is, he was, he has, we are, we were, he did, he had. It's hard to know exactly what you are meaning with that short abbreviation unless you see the whole sentence. So my advice to you is just don't be lazy and just put in the full word. He is. All you need to do is put in the I, or yeah, we are, we were. Just put in the full word, because A, it looks lazy. B, it makes the person, well, it could be ambiguous as to your meaning. And also, using these abbreviations, it's quite easy to make grammatical mistakes. So 3 reasons there not to do it. Be as polite as possible. And the you language. So for example, I got the email about your problem. Okay, now that could be a problem with their contract, a problem with their pipes, it could be anything. But the fact you've said your problem, it sounds like it could be, they could interpret it like they have a personal problem with their own person self. So yeah, try and avoid using you or your followed by something negative. If it's something good, that's okay. I received your email. Many thanks. That's okay. That's really good. Or yeah, your contract has gone through. It's been approved. So yeah, that's fine, but don't follow it by something negative. Now, here again, yeah, this is just to emphasize good is okay. Thank you so much for your email regarding the issue of. Okay, now I've replaced problem with the word issue. Issue is much nicer than problem. Problem, it sounds very negative. Issue sounds like a challenge, something that can be resolved. So try and replace problem with issue wherever you can. To be honest, try and remove problem from your vocabulary when it comes to doing any professional writing. And, either challenge or issue, replace it with something else wherever possible. Another bad example, the report must be completed by Friday noon, could be changed to, if you could please ensure that the report is completed by Friday noon so that. Okay, so again, I've added the word please, makes it nicer. And also here, like I mentioned, if you give the reason why, they're more likely to empathize with you, and it's more likely to go higher on their to-do list of things to get back to you on. Completeness. Okay, so include dates, times, names, and numbers. Double check all details carefully, proofread and spell check. Yeah, just make sure everything is correct. Now, if, for example, you say something like, send me the information on the Shanghai project, a bit like I mentioned before on the beginning slides, it's not very precise. They'll be thinking, or they could be thinking, what information exactly do you need? And then they're going to have to go and check back through the emails to see what's required. Why don't people just say, please send me the financial report and also the planning schedule for the Shanghai project? Be more precise, and you're more likely to get a faster response. And correctness. So correctness, yeah, use the correct grammar, spelling, punctuation, adapt your language to your reader, illustrate to display data, and use citations to confirm sources. So yeah, make sure everything is correct. Run it through the spell check if you need to. And no matter how long your writing has taken you, maybe some emails can take an hour. I know I've done very long emails. They've taken me a long time in the past. It's better, as I mentioned, to write a short email and include the long text in a Word document. But, perhaps you've spent a long time making an email, putting an email together. You'll probably be thinking, I want to go and have my dinner, and you just want to hit send. Take a few more minutes to just read that email again, because the worst feeling in the world, or one of the worst feelings, is when you hit send and you're like, no, just as the email is getting sent and you've spotted a spelling mistake or you've got someone's name wrong or something in there. So just make sure everything is double checked. Okay, now how to write more concisely. How can we do this? How can we actually find ways to shorten your writing? Well, this is what we're going to be looking at, and there's many different ways that you can actually achieve it. The first one. Okay, so just this is a bit of sort of trivia, a bit of general knowledge actually from research that's been done. How many, I'll ask you a question and you can try and guess. How many or what percentage of the population do you think would understand a sentence of 7 to 10 words in the first reading? Okay, so for example, imagine if someone shows you a sentence and you read it the first time and it's 7 to 10 words long, how many people or what percentage of people do you think would understand that complete sentence the first read? It's actually approximately 95%. Okay, so 95% of people reading a sentence for the first time that is between 7 to 10 words long will understand that complete sentence the first time. However, if you increase the words in that sentence, and this is including commas and everything between the beginning and the full stop, if it's 15 to 20 words long, that percentage dramatically reduces. to 75%. Okay, so that means that 25% of people have to go back and reread the whole sentence again just to understand the meaning. Now, if you increase the wordage to 27 plus, it's only 4% of people who actually can understand that the first time. And you might be thinking, oh, I never write sentences with 27 plus words. I guarantee you do. If you go back and look at some of your sentences, you'll see some of them with maybe 2 or 3 commas or hyphens or whatever in the middle. And if you count the words, maybe not a lot, maybe just a few, but there will be some that are over 27 words long. It sounds more than it actually is. So please go and check it. Go and check some stuff that you've written and see for yourself. And try and remember this. 95% of people will understand it if it's under 10. Sometimes that's difficult to do, but definitely make sure that you are not writing more than 20 words in a sentence. 15 maximum. If you can keep it there, that's great if possible, wherever possible. Also, try and keep them under 20. Try to keep them under 12 or 15 if possible. But definitely use simple words instead of long ones, and eliminate words that repeat ideas or don't add value to a sentence. We'll talk about that more in the coming slides, but there are words like very, like basically, that people put in that have no value. With writing, try and remove them wherever you can for your readers' benefit. Okay, so eliminate redundant words. Cutting redundant tautologies can help create stronger, more direct sentences. Tautologies are expressions or phrases that repeat the same information. They take up unnecessary space and can distract your reader. Okay, so that's what a tautology actually is. You're probably thinking, well, what exactly is that and do I use them? Probably do, and I'm going to give you some examples of some common ones. Okay, so in my opinion, I think that's a problem. Admittedly, this is something that's more sort of spoken orally rather than written on many occasions, but I have seen it very I have seen it frequently in emails also. So it's repeating itself. In my opinion, I think it's the same thing if you think about it. You could remove the redundant words so that it's just, in my opinion, that's a problem. In my opinion, and I think, are pretty much the same thing. The course had several necessary requirements. Now, this is something, and I can fully understand why people do it. They want to stress the importance, so they use necessary and requirements. But if you think about it, if something is necessary, then it is a requirement. And if something is a requirement, of course it's necessary. So choose which one you want to use. Here I've chosen the course had several requirements. It's making it shorter straight away. For each and every toy you purchase, we will donate one RMB to a kids charity. Again, it's people trying to stress or to emphasize each and every single one. Well, you could have said every single, but each and every, same thing. Just remove one of them for every toy you purchase or for each toy you purchase. Here on the right, you'll also see some other common redundant pairs. Full and complete, each and every, hopes and dreams, whole entire. There's a list there of some other very common ones that people often tend to use. Try and remove them as much as possible. Even if you could just remove some. Obviously, especially spoken, people will use them to emphasize, and also sometimes it can sound good. It can make things sound more impressive when people emphasize using some of these tautologies. But in writing, the main reason to remove them is because it makes your sentence longer, which is harder for the reader to digest straight away. Now, deleting unnecessary qualifiers. So, qualifiers are things that people use to express meaning, such as really. You can often eliminate 1 or 2 words per sentence by deleting these unnecessary qualifiers. Okay, so for example, I'll read this to you and try and think which ones you would actually remove. Because a great many of the words in this sentence are basically unnecessary, it would really be a very good idea to edit somewhat for conciseness. Okay, so which ones of those would you remove? If you wish, please pause this now. Otherwise, I'll give you the answer. Because many of the words in this sentence are unnecessary, we should edit it. And here on the right, again, you have a lot some other common qualifiers that people typically include. Actually, really, basically, probably. There's a list there that people often use. So if you can, wherever you can, please try and avoid them. Construct positive sentences. Now, this is something I really would like you to embrace. Expressing ideas in a negative form means that you must use an extra word. It also makes readers work harder to figure out your meaning. Now, I'll try and give you an example first. People, I do a lot of sort of psychology based communication training, like EQ, through using NLP, and it is true that people typically think in the positive, which is good in a way. For example, if I say to you, don't I want you to not think about what I'm asking you to do. Okay, so don't think about a big blue elephant wearing underpants and a bra and a funny hat. Okay, don't think about that big blue elephant in his crazy dress standing on a table doing a dance. Don't think about that. Okay, now what probably happened is you pictured a blue elephant um, in some interesting dress or outfit, dancing on a table, maybe singing and dancing. And the reason is because before people can process not, they have to process the positive, the do. For example, if you say to your kid, don't talk, often the kid will think, well, what should I do then? If, for example, you said to them, speak more quietly, then it's easier for the kid to understand. Here's another example. If you do not have more than 5 years of experience, do not call for an interview if you have not already spoken to human resources. Now, I've thrown three in there, three negatives. Now, you have double negatives. With a triple negative, it's even harder to comprehend. Put it in the positive. So rather than have it negative, turn it into the positive and it becomes much more simple. For example, applicants with more than 5 years experience can bypass human resources and call for an interview. Okay, so whenever you've got a negative form of a word, there is usually a positive way of saying that same thing. So do that, it'll A, make your sentence shorter, and B, it'll be less confusing for the person hearing it, and C, it'll probably be less difficult for you to actually write it correctly, because writing with double and triple negatives can be challenging and can turn out grammatically incorrect. So definitely do embrace that and look back at some of your previous writing and see if you've been doing it. And if so, think how you could change it to become more positive. Identify and reduce prepositional phrases. Okay, so overuse of prepositional phrases that begin with words like in, for, from, at, on, though, and over can make sentences clunky and unclear. To locate this problem, circle the prepositions in your draft and see whether you can eliminate any prepositional phrases without losing your meaning. Now, this is if you're writing on a piece of paper. I quite like writing on pieces of paper. I'm fairly old school in that respect. Not always, obviously. You know, it's much quicker to type. My typing is far faster than my writing. And also it's easier to change. But I do often like, if I have something that I really need to spend a lot of time on, going out, go to the park, go for a coffee, and maybe take a piece of paper and a pen, like people used to do, and write it out, and then circle things that I might need to change, and then I'll type it. If you're not doing it that way, if you're just going to use a Word document, and just one other quick thing, if you're writing an important email, definitely if you're replying to an important email, don't just hit reply and write the email, because it's very easy to accidentally hit send too quickly. Put it in a Word document first. The spell check is actually better for some reason than normal email spell checkers. But also, yeah, you'll be able to do things like, here you highlight words, you can do a word search for these words to actually look for them specifically, and then you can make your amendments to the Word document. When you're happy with it 100%, you can then copy it over to your email. The reason for the failure of our last project, I'm not going to read all of that. I'm just going to show you how much shorter it can become by reducing these prepositional phrases. Here, the good one is we failed the product promotion campaign in the Northeast China region due to our staff not being able to answer our customers' questions. You've reduced that massively into nearly half the size by just removing prepositional phrases. For example, the reason for the and the sort of the ins, the froms, the ofs, the ats, the ons. Try and remove those as much as possible. Use the nouns and the adjectives as you need them. And keep those prepositional phrases to a minimum wherever possible. Okay, and tip number 5, locate and delete unnecessary modifiers. Sometimes the meaning of a word or phrase implies its modifier, making it unnecessary. Okay, so look at words in the sentence that sort of imply one another. Maybe you don't need all of the words that you're using. For example, do not try to anticipate in advance those events that will completely revolutionize society. Now, anticipate means it implies in advance. Similarly, revolutionize, it implies completely. So, which ones can you remove? Well, here we can remove the in advance and completely. So do not try to anticipate revolutionary events. So yeah, if words are implied by other words, then remove them as they're not necessary. Sometimes they might be, but generally, or many times, they can be removed. So, please do keep these 5 tips in mind, and just have a look at anything else that you've written, but also obviously in future writing, maybe have these as a little guideline to see and to make sure that you're not using any of these, and shorten things as much as possible. And also, yeah, you'll hopefully see results fairly immediately, especially in email writing. Okay, so that's the end of these 5 tips. I'll see you in the next slide. Welcome back. So, as mentioned earlier in the course, writing has tone. It's not just the words that you use and the vocabulary and the grammar, but the tone of your writing also. So, this part of the course will focus on how you can try and ensure that the tone that you're using within your email covers your audience in every way that you possibly can make it try and fit. So, the tone of the email has to convey the attitude of whatever you're writing. But obviously, no matter what the situation is, it could be urgency, it may be some form of annoyance, maybe you're requesting something, or maybe your previous email has been ignored. Whatever the situation is, you want to try and convey a positive attitude wherever possible. Okay, so the right tone in writing, typically, there's no sort of complete concise list for everything that needs to be in the tone of a written email or report, but these 5 things are fundamental. And the first one is to be confident in your writing, but not be arrogant or not come across as being arrogant. And this is something we'll be talking about in the coming slides. Be courteous and sincere. Stress the benefits for the reader rather than, I want this, I need that. Or maybe if it's more of a sort of persuading or selling aspect or angle that you're going for, you want to be really pushing on the benefits rather than just the facts or the details. The benefits for the reader, if they respond to you, is going to get a far faster response than if you're just saying, I need this, this, and this by this time. Write at an appropriate level of difficulty, and I've got a very good example that I'll be sharing with you for this, and also use appropriate emphasis and subordination. So this list of 5 are the main points that we're going to be covering, how to achieve them and how to make your writing the best it can be, given those 5 sets of criteria, which I believe are essential. Okay, see you in the next slide. So to begin with, displaying humble confidence. Now, it might sound like a bit of an oxymoron, but this is truly something that is quite difficult to achieve the balance for. But this is directly where you want to be at. You want to be confident, but also with an element of humbleness in there too. So how can you achieve that? Well, be certain or prepare to ensure certainty in your written material to influence your reader. It's to do with your credibility as well. So you've got to have certainty, you've got to have confidence, but then you've got to sort of strike a balance with modesty as well within your writing. Whatever the situation is, there's no situation where politeness won't be a benefit to you. Maybe you're angry about something, maybe something hasn't been done that should have been done and you're chasing it. But by being polite, even in that scenario, the reader, if you think of it, if you put if you look at it from the audience's point of view, or your reader's point of view, they will really respect you if you manage to maintain your level of politeness and courtesy and humbleness, even in difficult or challenging situations. Okay, so a bad example, for example, would be you must agree that our services will meet your needs. Okay, now this is more of a sales example. Maybe it's true. Maybe you have the best product or service in the world, and you're trying to say, look, it's perfect for you. You must agree that it will meet your needs. But okay, now this is not being humble. This is, in fact, is sort of giving the recipient a bit of an order. It's telling them they must do something. They don't have to do anything. No one must do something apart from you, really. We can't force anyone to do anything. So saying they must do something is quite strong. What you could do to make that sort of more humble and modest would be to use something like this. We do our utmost, and I love this word, utmost. The utmost is the most you could possibly do. So you're being very humble here. We do our utmost to ensure that our products will cater to your complete requirements. So this is going about it from the other angle, and this is saying that you are doing everything for them. So it's much better received if it's this way round. Now, courteous and sincerity. Obviously, whatever the situation, as I mentioned, we have to remain courteous and sincere. So to do this, well, we always need to sort of keep our eye on ensuring that we never sound condescending. And maybe you don't want to sound condescending, maybe you don't mean to sound condescending, but some people can sound condescending depending on the words that they use. Okay, being respectful and honest, readers will be more willing to accept your message. Now, I'll give you an example of this. Here we have, please read all the instructions carefully, otherwise you will experience errors. Now, the capital letters, again, as I mentioned earlier on in the course, is a massive no-no. But also what this is implying is that the reader doesn't, or potentially doesn't always, read everything carefully, so much so that you have had to write it in capital letters to drum home the fact that they need to read it carefully. So in a way, you're showing that you don't trust them, you have little faith in them. I'm reading into this one sentence quite a lot, but I'm sure you can understand where I'm coming from and where some people might, the gist that they might take from it, which would probably be incorrect. So take care when you're writing sentences like this and change them. Please follow the instructions to ensure smooth operation. And here's an example of where we give the benefit, and we are sort of giving them some sort of advice, a suggestion, but we've added a please to begin with. And also, yeah, we're not saying so that you don't experience errors. We're just saying so that there is a smooth operation. So you're sort of talking about things in the third person. And when you're mentioning or using the third person, it's great, especially if you're giving instructions or if there's anything negative, um, rather than using you should do this, you should do that, or you shouldn't do this. So yeah, try and use please, definitely, and make it more of a suggestion and give the benefit as well for the reader. Now, moving on from that, stressing the benefits for the reader is key. It'll help you to get things done far more quickly. Look at it from the reader's perspective, like what's in it for them. If you want to look at it that way, what's in it for them? Either a positive or something detrimental that might happen. For example, please return the paperwork to me by 10 a.m. tomorrow, so that we can get this application processed for you. So something positive. I've used the you there because I want to, show that I'm actually doing it for them. It's a positive you use of the word. Um, and it shows that you care for the reader as well, which is going to get them on your side, and they're going to want to work with you, which will be helpful for you in the long run. So, bad example, the order will be processed tomorrow. Now, there's nothing really wrong with that if you think about it, So, imagine you're processing the customer's order. The order will be processed tomorrow. Okay, fair enough. But you could make that so much nicer by changing it slightly. I will process your order first thing tomorrow. Now, maybe you will, maybe you won't. But if you're letting them know that you're going to at least try and do it first thing in the morning, it shows that you care. It shows that you've given whatever you need to do for them utmost importance. And there at the end, you've given a benefit to ensure it is actioned as soon as possible. Now, this is a demonstration of fantastic customer service. It's the same thing. The order that you're not doing any more work, and all you've done is change your words a little bit, but straight away the reader is going to be thankful. They're going to feel safer in your hands, and also you won't receive another email back from them saying, "Oh, when will it be actioned?" This answers that preemptively. Okay, so it's a good example of how you can use it, especially in customer service. Now this one, right at an appropriate level of difficulty. Now this is a true story. I get called in to do a lot of coaching when it comes to, well, different aspects of communication, and this one was particularly email writing. It was someone in China, and they had an office in France, and there was a communication breakdown. Basically, the people in France didn't like the Chinese guy that I went on to coach. And the reason they didn't like him is because they thought he sounded arrogant and pig-headed. And the boss of the company actually sent me, or his direct manager sent me, the emails that he had been sending, and he agreed. They did come across really badly, and I agreed as well. And before I met the guy, I was thinking, oh my gosh, what have I let myself in for? This guy sounds horrible. But when I met him, he was actually one of the loveliest guys I've ever met. Really nice, genuine, sweet guy. But the problem was the words he was using, he wasn't using correctly. And he was obviously looking words up in the dictionary, English words in the dictionary, that he was using incorrectly. And he was using words that just sounded really condescending. My advice to you here, is to write at an appropriate level of difficulty to the people that you're writing to. Now, in my example of this guy that I was coaching, he had the same sort of skill level as the guys in France. They were sort of they were doing the same role, but just in different countries, and they were different nationalities. But the problem there was, so he wasn't writing in a level of difficulty that was sort of above their skill set. The technical language and jargon they probably understood, but he was using words that he didn't know how to use. Okay, so first thing, don't use words that you don't know how to use, definitely, just to sound, intelligent. It's not a competition. We don't write emails to show how intelligent we are. We do want to build credibility, but you lose credibility as soon as you start using words incorrectly. So make sure that whatever words you're using, whatever sentence structures you're using, you are 100% certain you're using them correctly. Otherwise, find another way of writing it. But when it does come to jargon, do ensure that you know that the other people that you're writing to can understand that jargon. Because if you're using jargon and people don't understand it, you're going to break rapport straight away. It's going to take them time. They're going to be unhappy because you're wasting their time, because they have to look up on the internet the jargon that you're using. So yeah, write at an appropriate level of difficulty for your reader and also to build your own credibility. Here's some examples. This action is necessitated with urgent effect to avoid immobilizing related tasks. This is an example of what the guy I was coaching was writing, and completely unnecessary. You probably don't know what that means, and a lot of people wouldn't. People have to read that 4 or 5 times to actually understand what it means, and what it means is simply this: kindly action the request as soon as possible to avoid delays. Much nicer, much more simple, and it'd probably get a faster response. So, stress the benefits for the reader and write at an appropriate level of difficulty. Okay, now active and passive voice, extremely important, and I touched on it a few moments ago in one of the previous slides, but there is a time and a place for active and passive voice. Now, neither of them is better or worse than the other. I often get asked, should I always use this or should I always use that? The answer is use them both in different situations. So English verbs have 2 voices, active and passive. Active voice is clearer and more direct. So if you write in the active voice, most of the time it will be shorter. Your sentences will be shorter. It's clearer as well. Passive voice sentences use more words, they can be vague and lead to audience confusion. You'll often see passive voice in legal contracts, or any contract, basically. You'll see if people want to try and sound intelligent, they'll also try and use the passive voice more. Resumes also can use passive voice. There's certain circumstances where passive voice is used and is essential, and for reasons which I will explain in a second. Okay, so just to give you some examples of active and passive. So active voice, you focus on the subject. So here, for example, it is Robert Greene. So Robert Greene developed a process for constructing new solar homes. The focus is on Robert Greene. He is the subject. Okay, now if we write that sentence in the passive voice, a new process for developing solar homes was developed by Robert Greene. I paused there because you could actually completely remove by Robert Greene. He's moved to the end of the sentence now. He's no longer that essential. This is in the passive voice. The focus is on the new process for developing solar homes. Okay, so that's an example there. Now, this is a use case scenario. Imagine if I am in the office and I am trying to photocopy some documents and I break the photocopier. I'm then told that to get it fixed, and I need it fixed quickly, to get it fixed, I've got to email the whole office so that IT will pick up the email and then come and fix the photocopier. Now, do I really want to email everyone in the office saying, I broke the photocopier? This is the active voice. You know it's the active because I is at the beginning. Okay, obviously not. So I would write it in the passive voice. The passive voice is great if you want to omit the subject, which is, this is a perfect example. The photocopier has been broken. If I really wanted to, I could say the photocopier has been broken by me, but of course I'm not going to do that. So I just leave it as the photocopier has been broken. It says the same thing. Much the same as, maybe you delete all of your client's data. Rather than saying, I deleted all the client's data, you would just say, oh, the client's data has been deleted in the passive voice. So if it's negative news, use the passive. If it's positive news, use the active. That's one rule. And this just sort of clarifies it as well. So yeah, if the active voice is the subject of the sentence, is the doer, it makes your sentences more interesting and easier to understand and also makes them shorter. Whereas passive voice, it makes it slightly unclear, makes it slightly longer, but it keeps the identity of the subject a secret. Okay. Now, when to use them, here are the other rules. So the first one that I mentioned is when you are delivering bad news. It's the first one. When the subject is not important or you don't know the subject. Yeah, maybe you don't know who they are, in which case you can't state them in the sentence, use the passive. When you aren't sure who is responsible for an action, so maybe there's multiple parties and you're not sure who. So again, this circumstance would be for the passive. If the focus attention is on the object rather than the subject. So with the new solar homes example, the focus is on those new solar homes, not the subject. So yeah, again, this is the fourth sort of main reason or main time that you would use the passive voice. Okay, little quiz for you just to see if you can remember those and how well you can remember these. I'd like you to select the sentence that is in the active voice. Okay, so first one, is it miracle cure is recommended by doctors or doctors recommend miracle cure? If you'd like more time to think, please pause at any of these. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep on going. Okay, so yeah, the answer is doctors recommend miracle cure. It's the active voice. The subject goes at the beginning. Next one. The company requires staff to watch a safety video every year. Or the staff are required by the company to watch a safety video every year. The answer is the company. And already with both of these, you can see the sentence is shorter. And yeah, this one especially, the staff are required by the company to watch a safety video every year. Very long-winded. But if you need it to be like that, then passive is fine. But in an email, wherever possible, use the active. So more common than not, people will try and use the active in an email because it's shorter. Okay, the treaty is being signed by the two kings, or the two kings are signing the treaty. Which one is it? I hope you got it right. The two kings are signing the treaty. Next one. The kangaroo carried her baby in her pouch, or the baby was carried by the kangaroo in her pouch. It's obviously the first one. The kangaroo is the subject carrying the baby in her pouch. And the last one, scientists have conducted experiments to test the hypothesis, or experiments have been conducted to test the hypothesis. Well, I hope you're getting the idea by now and that you have chosen the first one. The scientists are the subject, therefore that is the active voice. Welcome back. Okay, so now we really are going to start to delve into email etiquette, ways of drastically improving your writing and coming across in the best possible light for your reader. So let's begin. Okay, so I'd like to begin by just showing you a sample email. Don't worry, you don't have to read all of it, but this is typically the structure that you'll be looking for when you're writing. So obviously at the top you have a nice subject line or headline, very clear, very concise to ensure that the reader knows what the email is about. This needs to be continually updated, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Then you begin with the addressing the recipient. Dear John, could be Hi John. There's different ways, and again, we'll be talking about that further on. Then you have your greeting. Now, this is the part that a lot of people miss out, and it is essential that you have a greeting here. And because this is the first thing, apart from their name, that they will see, and this really sets the tone for the email. Next, you have the introduction and body, followed by the ask, the action, the call to action, if you'd like to call it that, what you essentially need or what you'd like them to do. So here it says, I would like to request a meeting with you. Now, depending on the importance of the call to action, this could be moved higher up. Some people would even maybe put it at the top of the email. The reasoning for that is in case the person maybe receives a phone call when they're reading your email. So by putting the call to action, the thing that you really need at the top, could be a way forward. Some people even put it on there twice, but just written slightly in slightly different ways. Whatever is up to you. But if it's not sort of utmost importance, typically people would put it down here just as a guide, is to let the reader know exactly what you want them to do. Maybe it would say, I look forward to hearing from you soon. Maybe it would say, if you have any questions, let me know. Whatever it is, you can let them know, A, if they need to reply, B, when they need to reply by, or maybe it's just for their own information. But letting them know there makes it nice and clear. Then you have a closing statement. Now, typically, I tend to use similar closing statements in most of my emails. I look forward to hearing from you soon. If you have any queries, please let me know. And then you finish off with your signature. So yeah, the closing statement or the closing sentence is something that you might even attach or have within your signature. Some people do. I wouldn't recommend that. My signature just has kindest regards, my name, and then sort of my company details. Okay, but anyway, this is the general sort of layout. Please do note that it's not all one big chunk of text. Instead, you have sort of spaces and paragraphs in between each, which breaks it up nicely. So yeah, please do notice that. The reason it's good is because no one likes to look at a massive chunk of text. It makes it difficult to read. Just simply splitting it into shorter lines or paragraphs makes it's easier on the eye, makes it easier to read, and also it's less scary looking. If someone's looking at too much text, they might think, oh, I'll read that later, I'm not in the mood to read that now, in which case your response will be later as well. So this way it's cleaner, it's nicer. Maybe you want to use bullet points in there, it's up to you, but this is a sort of a sample format. So what actually is email etiquette? You hear the term a lot, most probably, but what actually is it? Well, it's actually the rules which indicate the correct way to behave in a certain time and place. You have dining etiquette as well, for example. It's the principles of behavior that people should sort of take note of when they're answering or writing or answering emails, code of conduct of communication, and it's essential in the workplace to build credibility. Also, as an employee, you're an ambassador of your company. You may have your own set layouts and templates that your company wish you to follow. but email etiquette will still be integrated within those. So please do, take note of these few tips I'm going to give you, and please do try and implement them and see how they work. And if you have any feedback as well at any time, as I mentioned, I'm always happy to hear it. I love the comments and feedback, and I'll be happy to respond. So, first thing, we have here, well, two sort of silhouettes. Now, you receive an email from Ashley Davis. You've never met Ashley before. How would you begin your email? Just give you a few seconds to think about it. Now, this is something that I've experienced myself, and it doesn't look good. And also, I've heard many sort of company employees have also faced similar situations, especially because I was in China. So some of the names people might not know if it's a man or a woman, and in fact some names like Ashley can be for a boy or a girl. So be careful. I've had emails sent to me before calling me Mrs. Hurley, and if that's the first thing I see in the email, it doesn't go down well. It doesn't set the good tone for the rest of the email. So do be careful when you're writing to somebody. You don't really want to misgender them. Okay, so what can you do to save that happening? Well, what you can do so that you don't fall into making any form of mistake, all you need to do is use an appropriate salutation, which is, for example, dear Taylor Brown or dear Ashley Davis. So use their full name. A generic greeting could be dear sir or madam. So typically you would use dear sir or madam if you don't know who you're writing to. You'll see there it says to whom it may concern. Now, to whom it may concern is very formal. And to be honest, your response rate, if you're writing to whom it may concern at the top of your email, your response rate will probably be fairly low because it's that you don't they don't know who you're writing to. If they don't know who you're writing to, they're probably not going to respond. So, but also, for example, if I receive an email that says to whom it may concern, if they don't know my name, it's definitely not going to the top of my list of things to respond to. I'll respond to things far faster if it has my name on it, and I'm sure many people feel the same. So that's just something to be aware of. When you know the person well, then dear Taylor, it's always going to be okay in business. Hello, Taylor. Some people do just put Taylor, but as in the example on the first slide of just putting Emma, it can sort of be a bit abrupt. So, something hello or hi or dear is always nicer. Now, I often get asked when to use dear, when to use hello, and when to use hi. I also get asked which is more formal, hi or hello. Now, obviously, hello. I'll approach this one first. Hello is the full word, isn't it? Hi is a shortened form of hello. However, due to the common use of hi in emails, it has actually become the preferred option. It's probably the more standard option. Hello is typically what people say when they're speaking, more than when they're emailing. When they're emailing, it's usually hi. Now, when to use dear and when to use hi. Now, typically, what I would do, and as a rule of thumb, and I would advise you to do this as well, because you can't really go wrong if you do it this way. I would always begin with dear. So, especially with customers, especially with senior managers or whoever as well, begin with dear. Now, if when they respond they're using hi, then maybe you use hi. Okay. However, if they write to you first and they use hi, then you can use hi. So basically, if they're writing to you first, just copy whatever they do. If you're writing first, use dear until they stop using dear. That's a good way. If you want to remain formal all the way through, then just keep using dear. I often just use dear all the way through, even if I'm receiving hi back. But yeah, there's no definite answer. I'm just giving you some sort of ideas of what you can do if you ever get stuck. Right, when you're sending to a supervisor, yeah, like dear Mr. Brown, dear Mrs. Brown, Ms. Brown. Now, the thing here that you might notice is the full stop after Mr. On the left, it has it. On the right, it doesn't. Now, there is no right or wrong regarding this full stop. If you want to use it, you can. You don't have to. In England, I don't think we really use it that much. I think in America, people tend to use the dot more. And also in some countries in Europe, they tend to use the dot after Mr., Mrs., and Ms. But yeah, it's entirely up to you. The only thing I would recommend is to remain consistent. So, but yeah, it's entirely up to you. It's very similar to the comma after the name. Sometimes it has like dear Ms. Brown, comma. Some people do use it, some people don't. There's no real right or wrong with it. It's personal preference. Now, this is quite important, addressing multiple people. Okay, so here we've got Dear Taylor, Bob, Mary, and Sue, or Dear Team, or Dear All. Okay, now I prefer to use, Dear Team, Dear Everyone, Dear All, rather than the names. And I'll tell you why. You might think it's silly, but people do get offended by it. Um, Dear Taylor, Bob, Mary, and Sue. Now, Taylor might be thinking, wow, that's fantastic. Mine's the first name. I am the most important. Sue, however, might be a bit disgruntled, especially, for example, if Sue is the CEO and Taylor is the intern. Sue might not like that. So be very careful about that. There could be hierarchy issues. So best to avoid it. Dear all, I think, is my go-to, unless it's a team where you can actually mention the name of the team. And then if you want to mention something to people within the email itself, use their name. Quite common nowadays as well, people will put the @ symbol and then the person's name, who they are wishing to sort of relay the information to or ask a question to. One other thing is, don't mix and match the Mr. and the Mrs. with the first names on their own. So, for example, you don't say, Dear Mr. Smith, Taylor, Mrs. Jones, and Sue. If you're going to use Mr., Mrs., Ms., then use it for everybody. Otherwise, just use their first names and remain consistent. Don't mix and match. Again, could be hierarchy issues, and some people could get disgruntled. Okay, I hope that's been useful. Now here, just one small thing to mention, never use hello dear or hello dears. This is something that I see quite a lot, usually when I get emails from non-native English speaking countries, and they're trying to be nice, they're trying to be very sort of nice, pleasant, humble. But hello, dear, is something I say to my wife when I come home. And hello, dears, is something that grandparents usually say to their kids. Either use hello or use dear, but don't use both together. So, yeah, that's just something to be aware of if you're a non-native speaker. Now, avoid using these greeting words in business also. Okay, so hey, fine to use with your friends, but this is a very informal salutation and should stay out of the workplace. Secondly, dear mom. Mom is something that you call the queen. So it gives off a very impersonal vibe. It can also be offensive to the recipient, but also it sounds very old. If you're calling people mom, it sounds very old. So yeah, try not to do that. Dear madam, if you want to be formal and polite. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is fine as long as you know that the person who's opening it will be opening it in the morning, afternoon, or evening. It's polite, but if you send your email in the morning and then the person reads it in the evening, it's a bit strange. And again, it's a bit not confusing for them. I'm sure they'll understand that you wrote it in the morning, but just to save sort of any embarrassment or confusion, yeah, it's best to use dear or hi or hello. Well, dear or hi is probably the best rather than good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Those are fine if you're actually speaking to somebody live. Much the same as if you were making a vlog or video, you wouldn't use good morning, good afternoon, or good evening because it depends on where the person is. Anyway, yeah, who and the name. Okay, this is a bit awkward, a bit juvenile sounding. To is usually used on birthday cards and Christmas cards, for example. Yeah, to Jason, happy birthday. It's not used so much on emails. So hopefully you're not using this. If you are, yeah, again, dear or hi, it's better. The first name is not wrong. A lot of people do use it. I personally feel it's a bit abrupt, and I know other people do also. Um, if it's a customer, then it does sound very abrupt. I'm sure you'll probably agree with me there. Nicer to have dear or hi. Hi guys, hi folks, hey y'all. This is fine if it's your friends, if it's your team and colleagues that you get on well with and you have a great rapport with. Otherwise, it's not very formal, so try and avoid using these if you can. Much the same as using cheers at the end of the email. Misspelled names. Now, I know that you'll think that this is a no-brainer, but it does happen. And again, I've had my name misspelt, and it's only got 5 letters in my first name. But it does happen. Double check it. This is one of the things where, checking for corrections, when you're checking your final draft, check and double check their name as well as their email address. Sometimes the email address gets typed in wrong, but names like Danielle, sometimes it has one L, sometimes it has two L's. Double check, triple check those names. People don't like having their name misspelt. Okay, now include a clear subject. So subject, it's the first thing that people are going to see. Make it clear and try and include as much information as you can without making it too long. So include clear subject matter that succinctly captures what your email is about. For example, meeting date changed, or quick question about your presentation, or suggestions for the proposal. So whatever it is that you're writing about, try and give everything in there wherever you can. Maybe it's for your information, or please review, or action required. Um, the reason, probably the biggest reason I can give you for this, is it lets the recipient know what to do. And if for example you are emailing them every day, every week, every month, then they will start to know your emailing habits, and you will start to also know theirs. They'll know how soon you respond, and you'll know how soon they respond. They'll know when it's really urgent, and they'll know when it's just for their information. But you can make it really easy from the outset by putting it in the subject. If it has FYI, for your information, they'll know that it doesn't have to be dealt with straight away. It's just there if they need it. But if it says please reply or action required, they will open it with priority because they know that you label your emails well, and if you put it in the subject, you mean it. It's there for a reason. So use them sparingly and use them in the correct places. Well, use the urgent ones. For example, please review, action required. Maybe even it says urgent, but not in capitals. Use those sparingly, because when you want them to open them quickly, you want them to think, oh my gosh, I haven't seen them use that before, or I haven't seen them use that in a while. It is urgent. I better do it now. Okay. Yeah, don't capitalize all your letters, no matter how urgent it is. Don't capitalize any of the letters. writing urgent with a capital U and the rest in lowercase, and then a colon, and then whatever it is sufficient. It doesn't have to be all shouting capitals. This is an important one, especially if you have a large email trail. When the topic changes, update or restart the email. So maybe you want to keep the whole email within one email, but do change the subject. And the reason is because if you come back in 6 months' time and you want to go to that email, rather than having to look through 50 emails, you can just type in the subject and the sender, and you will be able to find it far quicker. So it's more for your administration convenience. Okay, right, so subject line tips. Yeah, micro statements can form subject lines. Basically what that means is have a concise sort of detail of what the email is about in your subject. Always update the subject, keep it short, grab attention, summarize the article. If it's a meeting, put full details of the meeting. Okay, now a bad example. For your information, team meeting details. Okay, now maybe you think, well, what's wrong with that? That's fine. I'll tell you what's wrong with that. If you want, say if you're in a rush for the meeting, which does happen, it means you're going to have to open the email. Isn't it much nicer if the sender put all of the information in the title or in the subject of the meeting itself? Team meeting, 10 a.m., 31st of July, meeting room 3. They know where to go, what time it is. They don't even have to open it. If they want more, they can open it, but they don't have to. You're saving them time. You're thinking of them. They will appreciate it. Okay, so select the appropriate subject line. Okay, so I'll read them through. I'll give you the answer and I'll tell you why. If you want to pause at any time, please do. So, to apply for the role of Java developer in a project, would it be application for the post of Java developer job, Java developer, or developer requirement? The answer is application for the post of Java developer. It's the only one that clearly and concisely lets the person know exactly what the email contains. Request for approval for attending a workshop on ISO 27001. Attend workshop on 25th of July, going to the workshop on Friday, request approval to attend ISO 27001 workshop, or to go to workshop not coming office. The answer is, of course, 3. Again, it's concise. Okay. Request your HR for a bona fide letter with a reason mentioned. Request for a bona fide letter for bank opening. Bona fide certificate wanted. Bank requires bona fide certificate, or give bona fide certificate. Which one do you think? Hopefully you didn't pick the last one. It's fairly sort of abrupt and a bit rude. The first one is the nicest and the best. If you're submitting a project report, ABC project report, July 2020, or check report. Which one do you think? It's B, or number 2, ABC project report, July 2020. Great. Don't hit reply all or CC everyone. Again, it might seem very simple, but I've seen people do it. I've seen people email the whole company by hitting reply all by mistake instead of just replying to the one person that they wanted. But also, don't copy everyone into your email. Maybe they don't want to be copied in. Some people, especially if there's sort of some complaint email and someone wants to complain about their colleagues, so they copy in all the managers, and then all the managers get annoyed because they don't want all of these emails going backwards and forwards. Be very careful when you copy people in. Only copy people in if it's essential, and also if they want to be copied in, or if they need to be copied in. So if you need them to, if they need to be, but yeah, wherever you can, ask their permission first if that is possible. But don't just add people, because yeah, it can lose you credibility, but also it can annoy others. Um, One thing, a good way of sort of knowing if it's a good idea to copy someone or not, is to think if other people in the chain of the emails that are being copied might have the same question that you have. If they do, then maybe it's a good thing. Rather than answering the same question 10 times, that's a good reason why people would like to be copied in. But that's not always, and it's again good to ask if they're happy to be, because yeah, if too many emails are going backwards and forwards, it can rapidly fill up people's inboxes, and they'll get upset. Also, does your manager solicit feedback from everyone? Does your manager want to be copied in? Managers are busy. They don't really want to be copied into everything. Some of them do. If they like to micromanage, often they don't. They just want the results. So definitely, if it's a manager, double check first. Always spell check. Now, I mentioned earlier that the word spell check is, for some, well, at last time I checked anyway, the word spell check was actually more efficient than the Outlook spell check. So this is specifically for people using Microsoft Office. This is what I found. It's not the only reason for using Word documents, though. It's a lot easier to sort of tailor your messages on Word, and also you've got the dictionary, you've got other tools that you can use too. So yeah, I would use Word for important emails and then copy it over to Outlook. But the spell check is a lot better in my opinion on Word. Now, here's some useful email phrases for you, if you would like to use them. So, opening lines, being sociable. I hope this email finds you well, or I hope all is well. I'm glad we had a chance to chat at the convention. It was a pleasure to meet you or to talk to you yesterday. Allow me to introduce myself. Now, I usually use I hope you are well if it's, well, anytime really. If it's just after the weekend, I might say, I hope you had a great weekend. Sometimes I'll say, I hope you're having a great day, or I hope you're having a great week. It doesn't matter what you use as long as you use something, because it sets the tone for the email and it's a nice thing to do. It's the first thing someone will read after their name. So yeah, as I mentioned, my go-to favorite is, I hope you're well. Now, if you're the one emailing first, you could use some of these. As we discussed on our call, I'm writing to you about our last meeting or your presentation or our next event. Or I'm writing to you with regards to, or regarding, or concerning, or in connection with. Or I'm writing to you to follow up on. Or might I take a moment of your time too? Now, this is very formal. But yeah, again, they're nice if you're the one emailing first. Some more useful phrases. If you're asking for clarification, could you please provide more details on? Or could you please clarify? And then whatever you need clarifying. Could you please clarify when you would like us to finish this? Or if I understood you correctly, you would like me to? Or could you explain what you mean by X? Or please elaborate. Could you please elaborate on what you mean by X? So yeah, don't just assume, don't jump to conclusions when you are, especially if you've been asked to provide some information in response to an email. Always clarify, and these are some great ways that you can use. They're all fairly similar, but you might have a preference. So yeah, please feel free to choose. Now, if you want to show them that you want to help, this is usually at the end of the email. So yeah, if I can be of assistance, please do not hesitate to contact me. If you require any further information, please feel free to contact me. Please let me know if you have any questions or queries. Should you need any further information, please do not hesitate to contact me. Or if you have any additional questions in the meantime, please let me know. Okay, so they're all very similar, some slight subtle differences, but again, choose the one that you like and which suits you best. Okay, so here are some more useful email phrases, and these are expressions with a future focus. So, yeah, just when you're finishing, when you're closing your email, these are nice to put at the end. I look forward to hearing from you soon, or I'm looking forward to your reply. So these let the person know that you're waiting for them to respond to you. It's making it very clear that you're looking for that. If you're not looking for it, maybe you're just beginning a partnership with someone and you're going to be working together. You could say something along the lines of, we look forward to a successful working relationship in the future. Now, if you do need something urgently, you could use the next one. I would appreciate your immediate attention to this matter. Fairly forceful, but it is still polite, but it's expressing the sense of urgency. Okay, so I hope those have been useful for you. And yeah, please do, look through, choose the ones you like, write them down, and try and use them in your emails as well. And yeah, as mentioned, a lot of them can be repeatedly used. So I hope that's useful for you, and I'll see you in the next slide. Welcome back. Okay, so these email examples, you will be able to download these, and these are just some nice examples of situations. So I'm not going to read each one of them, but if you just look at the top, you'll see the subject. So, for example, following up after asking someone to do something and no response. Okay, so this is probably one of the most common questions I get. How can you politely ask someone to do something when you've heard nothing at all? Um, Here, yeah, as you can see, I've used I hope that you are well. Began with a nice pleasantry. And yeah, I was just wondering if you've had a chance to. So, again, quite a nice way of saying, have you done this yet? Without saying it that way, and then give them the benefit. As soon as I receive, then what you need, then I can, and then the benefit to them is what you would put there, the next step and benefit that they care about. Now, I like this sentence. Please let me know if you have any questions or if you would like any more details. So it's basically saying, if how can I sort of help you to help me to get this done as soon as possible? And then I look forward to hearing from you, and then kindest regards. So it's sort of semi-urgent without being too forceful or adding too much pressure. So that's example one. Now, example two is requesting information for a project. Okay, so this is specifically projects or plans. Again, I hope you are well. I'm writing in reference to, then the project name, and then you're asking for a status update. And yeah, you'll notice it's very polite. If you could please provide us with a status update for, and then you give the exact details of what you're requesting. Could you also please confirm? Now, this is where I would use a numbered list. So yeah, please confirm, colon, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is that you need. Main reason for this is so that then you can always go back and say, regarding my email dated at this time, number one or point two, and you can actually refer directly to that exact point within the email. Many thanks in advance for dealing with this as a matter of urgency. That's another good sentence there. So you're thanking them in advance for doing it quickly for you. And then, yeah, I look forward to hearing from you. Kindest regards, and your name. So that's requesting information for a project. Now, if you're giving advice, this is slightly different. Again, I hope you're well. And then, yeah, I refer to your email regarding describing the issues that you've been experiencing. So this is like customer service, a sort of customer service response that you could use it for. And then, so yeah, you've mentioned the issues. Then you're clarifying the main issues. Remember, don't use problems, use issues. It's much better. And then, firstly, secondly, third. Then, if you want to, you can actually give sort of reasons and solutions one by one. It's up to you whether you want to do the issue and then the solution, issue then solution, or list the issues and then list the solutions. It's up to you. I typically prefer to list all the issues and then underneath list all the solutions, like issues, solutions. It's neater, but it's up to you. I hope the advice above will help you resolve the issues. If you require any further assistance, please do not hesitate to contact us again. So very nice, very clean, very concise. Okay, so example 4, following up after a meeting or call to move to next steps in doing business together. Okay, so this first email or the first line, I hope this email finds you well. That's yeah, another great sort of opening line to use. This email is, for example, if you had a meeting or if you went to a conference, had a presentation, had a call, and you're following up. Okay, so the first line, it was a pleasure meeting you and discussing, and then something they care about. This is just to refresh their memory, to take them back to that time previously. So yeah, try and give something. Maybe they mentioned something to you that they really enjoyed, and you liked it as well. So you're sort of refreshing their memory to make them think, oh yeah, it's that guy. I remember him. I'm in the process of preparing project or deal that you're working on so that you or we can then the benefit that they want, obviously, as always. I've attached a form for you to kindly complete with your basic information. If you could please, and then list the steps involved. If you could please get this back to me by day and time so we can, and then again, the benefit to them, it'll make them do it quicker. I look forward to hearing from you. Kindest regards. Okay, so yeah, a couple of different format emails for you there. I hope they're useful. Okay, so a little bit of a quiz here. You can see in the yellow box, these are the details that need to be put into the email. I'm going to read through it slowly, try and fill in the words as I'm going through. If you need to pause, please do. But yeah, good luck. Okay, so dear IT department, I hope that you had a great weekend. I'm writing in connection to the meeting arranged for Wednesday the 21st. I'm emailing in advance to let you know that the new CEO is penciled in to attend. I regret to inform you that I personally can't attend. However, I have provided information on the attachment regarding the project plan. If you need further information, please don't hesitate to contact me. I look forward to hearing the results of the meeting. Kind regards, Jason. Good. I hope you got most of those correct. If not, yeah, please try it again. And if you did get any mistakes, then maybe try it again also in a few days. Just to get used to throwing in these words in the correct places. Okay, great. Next slide. Now we're moving on to some English grammar. So these are a common sort of grammatical mistakes and things to be aware of just to ensure that your grammar is good. Again, coming back to that credibility. Okay, so English grammar. Here we go. Now these can be tricky. Countable and uncountable nouns. So yeah, the main part, if you look at this image on the left or this infographic, this is it's a useful way of remembering countable and uncountable nouns. To be honest, the green and the red, or the green and the pink, are very self-explanatory. The best part, the part I really like, is the purple box, because it sort of explains why uncountable nouns are what they are. So, for example, abstract ideas, things you can't touch, like love, freedom, education, luck. These are usually uncountable. Anything that you cannot physically touch can often be uncountable. If it's made up of really tiny pieces like sugar, rice, salt, sand, flour, things that you can't count with your naked eye are usually uncountable. Some food that it's sort of cut into smaller parts, for example, bread, fish, cheese, chocolate, meat, bacon. So yeah, it's these typically you sort of tend to have to memorize. If you have pieces of cheese, that can be sort of small pieces, any size of cheese itself. But if you could have mountains of cheese and it would still be cheese. So yeah, it's usually food that is in smaller pieces. That's the uncountable version of the noun. Liquids and gases, you can't physically count them. Again, with your naked eye, you can't count how many sort of molecules of water there are, so it's uncountable. Raw materials, typically like wood, glass, paper, gold, silver, they're usually uncountable. But be careful. Now these ones are the ones that often people get wrong. Furniture, advice, work, news, information, luggage, and money. Yeah, these ones they are commonly incorrect, especially furnitures. I'm not sure what an advice is. People often say furnitures and advices, so please do be careful of those. I know a lot of my students will print this off and they'll sort of have it stuck somewhere, or picture of it in their phone, so they can always relate back to it. But anyway, I hope that helps. Other common uncountable nouns that are mistakenly used as countable: attention, help, caution, evidence, confidence, research, confusion, and support. And yeah, so do be careful. Yeah, it's not a lot of attentions have been paid, it's a lot of attention. Different evidences. This is a really common one. No matter how many pieces of evidence there are, it's always just evidence. And yeah, so I'll let you read through these anyway in your own time. Okay, now how to use uncountable nouns. This is extremely important. Many versus much. Okay, so many is used with countable, much is used with uncountable. So it's not many evidences have been found, it's much evidence has been found. Much because evidence is uncountable. Now, when it comes to like numbers and amounts, number refers to how many of something there is, amount refers to how much of something there is. So again, number is for countable, like a number of people, you can count the people, have made a large amount of money. Okay, so money is uncountable, therefore its amount. So yeah, try and remember that. Many and number go together, much and amount go together. Okay, hopefully that's a good rule of thumb that will help you in the future. Now, this is something that will hopefully help you if you have difficulty remembering whether to use in, on, or at. Again, this is something that my students often print off. So on the left, we have time at the large end of the upside down triangle, and then at the bottom you have the smaller end of the triangle, the smaller point. Okay, and it's like that for a reason. Let's look at the top one first. Sorry, the left side first, time. So we're starting at the top. So if you have a large amount of time, for example, centuries, decades, years, months, or weeks, it's always in. Okay, so 2 weeks and above, it would be in 2 weeks, in 3 months, in 3 years, in 2 decades, or in the 1900s, etc. Now, if it is a day, even if it's like a birthday or a day of the week, yeah, it's on. So yeah, on May the 5th, on my birthday, on Friday, on Christmas Day. You could even have on the weekend. Also, people do use at the weekend though, so it can sort of be both, that one. But typically anything that is smaller than a day, you would have you would use at, for example, at 7 a.m., at 12 o'clock, at 5 p.m. So as the triangle gets smaller, you move from in, on to at. Same with location. If you have a big location like a country or a city or a neighborhood, like in England, in London, in Chinatown, because it's larger. But if it's a street, if it's a street or smaller, then it's on. On Oxford Street, on Carnaby Street. Yeah, so it's the name of the street. It would be on the street, on the road. Now, if it's smaller than the road itself, it's the address. So it would be at the address, at 734 Oxford Street, at the store, at Starbucks, for example. So it's at the location. Now, a lot of people ask me why isn't it, like, what's the difference between at the airport and in the airport? It's a location, but people use in for the airport. Now, the reason for that is because at the airport means at the location of the airport. If I say I'll meet you at the airport, it means I'll meet you at the location of the airport. If I say I'll meet you in the airport, that means I'll meet you inside the airport. Okay, so it's not actually a location, it's in the building. So that's the difference there. For example, if I say I'll meet you at the office, it means I'll meet you at the office location. If I say I'll meet you in the office, this in means inside. Yeah, that's an easier way to explain it. Inside the airport, inside the office, inside the coffee shop. So that in is actually inside. Okay, I hope that clarifies that. Okay, now a common sort of misuse of prepositions. I will see you at Monday. It should be I'll see you on Monday. But often people shorten it to I'll see you Monday. Same thing as I'll see you on Monday. Just more, it's more verbal, more sort of spoken term. Let's meet on 5 o'clock should be let's meet at 5 o'clock. I'm working in a big project. This is something that I see very often. Yeah, it shouldn't be in a big project. You can work in a big team. Again, it means like inside a big team, but it should actually be I'm working on a big project. And the last one, it depends of the situation. It should be it depends on the situation. Okay, great. Now, this is again a very common one. Attached versus enclosed. Now, the easiest way to explain this is that anything that is sort of inside something else when it is being sent is enclosed. For example, if you put money in a Christmas card or a birthday card, that is enclosed. It's sort of put inside something and then sent physically. If you are attaching a document, however many documents to an email, it is always attached. So please find the template agreement attached to this email. Okay, so letters or anything that's sent by post or courier are enclosed. Anything digital is attached. Kindly. Now, this is something that I frequently get asked also. How to use kindly. Now, the best way to explain it is, for example, if I say, I kindly request you to provide more information, what that actually means is I'm being kind by requesting that you give me more information. Okay, so this is a lot of people do this and it's incorrect. The way it should be is the other way around. Kindly provide more information, which is them being kind by sending it to me. Okay, so the best way to remember it is don't follow the word kindly. Don't follow the word I by kindly. Okay, so make sure there's no I before kindly. Kindly should come first. Kindly provide more information. If you want to use I, then use something humble, like I humbly request that you provide more information. So you don't show kindness by requesting something. It's the other person who shows kindness by providing something to you. Okay, now approval. Last one here. Yeah, you don't ask for someone's approval. You request or you seek their approval, or you would like their approval, but you don't actually ask for their approval. You seek it or you would like it. Okay, another couple of errors here. E.g. versus I.e. Okay, now E.g. means for example. I.e. is that is, or by which I mean, or in other words. So, e.g. is basically example. If you say, for example, I'm having a dinner party and I have a chef, and I would like my chef to cater for some vegetarians who will be attending. Okay, so I could say certain members of my family, e.g., mum and uncle, e.g., mum and Uncle Jake, are vegetarians. That means that there could be more vegetarians, but mum and Uncle Jake are also vegetarians. They're just some of the vegetarians in the room. Okay, it's an example. It doesn't mean it's all of them. But if I said, i.e., Mum and Uncle Jake, that would mean that Mum and Uncle Jake are the only vegetarians that are coming to the dinner party. Okay, so e.g. is an example, i.e. is by which I mean. And that's the difference. People tend to use them interchangeably, and often it just gets overlooked. But that is the correct way to use e.g. and i.e. Problem versus question. Yeah, be careful. I mentioned earlier, try and remove the word problem if you're emailing people. So yeah, it's got a negative connotation to it. It's better to replace it with issue or question or query or challenge. Well, if it's problem, then issue or challenge is better. Yeah, question, I tend to use query. I quite like to use query. Or inquiries. So rather than saying if you have any problems, you could say if you have any questions, or if you have any queries, or if you have any inquiries. It's also great as well. Okay, so yeah, I hope that this has been a useful course for you. It's been fun for me making it and putting it together for you. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please do get in touch. As mentioned, I will get back to you. I'll reply to any questions, comments, or feedback that I receive. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you so much for joining and for taking interest in the course. And I wish you all the very best for the future. And please do feel free to join any of my other courses at any time. All the best. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye. Hi there, welcome to this module of effective PPT writing. Now we're going to be looking at crafting engaging content. So to begin with, what I'd like you to do, please, is imagine that you're a senior director and you've already listened to 5 presentations today. So you might be feeling a little bit tired, you might be feeling that some of them are a little bit repetitive. What questions would these titles raise in your mind? Bearing in mind that it's going to be the first thing that you see. For example, Annual Report 2024 Sales Performance Report. Now, there's nothing really wrong with this, is there? It's a fairly inoffensive title, sort of says what it is, and that's typically what most people would call their report. But being the senior director and you've already listened to multiple presentations already, it's not going to really drive your imagination or entice you into actually wanting to take note of all of the content that's held in this report. So how could we improve it? Well, very simply, you just change the subtitle. 2024, our best year for sales. Now, this actually does raise questions in the mind of the reader, and you'd be thinking perhaps, well, why
is it the best year for sales? How come it's the best year for sales? And can we repeat it this year as well, taking into account all of the points that made it the best year for sales? So it's not just the simple title from the first one, just stating what it is. It's actually driving some questions for the reader, which will in turn entice them to want to actually read it and read it carefully, or maybe even seek out those certain areas of the report that are going to be the most engaging, answering the questions that they have raised in the reader's mind. Okay, another one, same question. What question do these titles raise in your mind? And here we have New Banking Product Launch Feasibility Study. Again, a very common type of title, but no questions are really raised. Again, changing it very slightly. Innovative 100 RMB banking product transforms lives. Again, you might be thinking, well, what is this product? How is it transforming lives? Or there may be other questions that might be arising in your mind at that time, or in the mind of the reader. So just a small change can make it more enticing and interesting for the reader. So catchy presentation or report titles entice audience engagement. So I've given you some simple examples there, like a before and after, but what are the main rules that we need to follow to make it enticing? Okay, so on the left you can see here what people usually write. Things like quarterly performance report, software update information, new product launch report, or even goals for 2025. Now what I'd like you to do, please, pause the video just for a short time and try and think how you could make those titles more enticing for the reader or for the audience. Yeah, how would you change them? Please pause the video now and try and come up with some alternate titles. Okay, now there is no right or wrong answer to this, but I hope in your own creative style you've managed to make these titles a little bit more interesting. Let me give you some examples. So, some attractive titles that I've come up with. For example, for the first one we have sales goals exceeded and profits increased. So obviously I don't need to explain too much. People would be questioning how come they've exceeded and by what amount were they exceeded, and what about the profits as well, how much did they increase by? Okay, so the key is to make it raise questions in the mind of the reader. The second one, new software update, benefits and risks. Now this is the key. A lot of the time when software is coming out, it's not just the functionality of it, but people want to know how it's going to help them in their day, and also any potential risks that there could be, especially with the new adoption of the software update. The third one, regarding the product, ABC product launch ahead of schedule. So the question raised here would be how much ahead of schedule, how come it's ahead of schedule, and maybe why can't we do that all the time? And finally, goals for 2025 could become strategies to boost revenue by $1 million. So, again, these are just examples. The amounts are rudimentary, it doesn't really hold any bearing on it, but it's the boosting revenue. Any boss, any investor would like to know how much the revenue boost is going to be, and also how come this has materialized. Okay, so those are a few more examples of attractive titles. Now, the title, as I mentioned, is the first thing you see, which makes it ever more crucial than most of the content within the report itself, because without the attractive title to entice the people in, it might not even get read or have as much attention as you'd like it to. It's the first impression also that you get to make on your reader, the first chance to hook the audience interest in the topics that it's actually addressing. So it's a window into the whole report or presentation itself. So when you're creating these titles, always do your utmost to clearly represent the content in a few words. And this carries through to email subject line titles as well. We all get multiple emails in our inbox during the day, and it's the ones with the most enticing titles that could often drive the audience attention. Also, the words that are used in the title should contain words or drive thought, and if you can, even emotion, to get a higher click-through rate. So, Catchy Headlines 101. So this list here of 6 is going to give you a framework for creating your titles. Number 1, for example, use numbers to give concrete takeaways. This is great because we often like to have a little breakdown of how many points would be addressed. For example, if you were baking a cake and you looked on the internet to find ways to bake a cake, would you like it if it was 100 ways or 100 key ingredients to make the most excellent cake? Or would you prefer if it was, for example, 5 key ingredients, or perhaps even 3 key ingredients that you can't live without? Okay, so use numbers. Also use emotional objectives with a view to solving audience issues. So try and drive the emotion, and you can do this by looking at or trying to calculate and gauge the benefits and risk, or the pain and pleasure points of your audience. Number 3, wherever possible, try and show the benefits to your audience in return for their time investment. For example, perhaps they only have a limited amount of time to digest your information, but if they know they're going to get some real value during that time, again, it might entice them to look at it more. Wherever you can as well, number 4, try and provoke curiosity, the questions in their mind that will make them open it, read through it, and look for the key points to satisfy their interest. Number 5, make an audacious promise. So what I mean by this is, imagine if you are giving a presentation or you're delivering a report and whoever's in the audience sees the title and they like it, they believe it. Perhaps you're going to save the company a huge amount of money. Perhaps they believe it and they then want to see the presentation or the report to see how much money you're actually going to save them and how it's going to be done. On the flip side, it doesn't matter if they actually believe your audacious promise or not. Perhaps they think, nah, there's no way that this could possibly be done. It's hopeless. Then they are still going to be interested because they're going to want to prove themselves right and you wrong. So whether or not they believe your audacious promise at the outset doesn't really make a difference. They're still going to be engaged, and as long as you can satisfy whatever the audacious promise was by the end of your report or presentation, then your audience is going to go away happy and satisfied. Try and provoke thought, joy, or concern. So, as I mentioned earlier, the audience members will have their own subjective pain and pleasure points. So, yeah, try and put those in the title wherever possible and make sure you satisfy them by the end. Use numbers, as I mentioned, to give concrete takeaways like great ingredients for making a delicious pie is not nearly as enticing as 3 critical ingredients for making a delicious chocolate pie. Your prospective audience will be thinking, do I know those 3 ingredients? What are they? Am I using them? Or perhaps they think, I am an expert already at making delicious chocolate pies, but I might just check to make sure that I haven't missed any. Now, typically, the number 3 is a very powerful one. As I mentioned, you don't want to have 100 ingredients. 3 to 5, that's usually the sweet spot. So try and keep it to those. At least 3, probably a maximum of 5. Target overcoming issues your audience may have. So rather than advice for banking professionals navigating international assignments, you could replace this with expert, and you'll see this word a lot in the media, a lot of the time when you're reading the news. They're always talking about experts. People tend to believe experts. It's being overused a lot in the moment at the media, but still it holds value. You think, wow, it must be true. It's coming from an expert. So, expert insights for banking professionals transitioning to global roles. Gives it more credibility. Power words as well that are packed with persuasion. So on the right you'll see some emotional objectives that you could use. For example, effortless, incredible, optimistic. We've had expert, top, leading, or intelligent. So yeah, these are known as power words, and as well as building credibility, it drives a bit more emotion to the content or the titles themselves. Next, tell the audience what they're going to get from the presentation. So, for example, Guide for Creating Innovative Financial Products is not nearly as enticing as 3 Secrets of Designing Financial Solutions that Inspire Future Generations. Really driving the emotion there. So try and use unique rationale to demonstrate what the audience will get from the presentation. On the right there you have some other great words that you could use. For example, reasons or principles or facts, lessons, ideas, ways, secrets, or a very commonly used one, tricks, or even hacks, which you will regularly see. Provoke curiosity, so rather than just a banker's memoirs, how about how a small bank transformed struggling communities into thriving economies? Now this how, or commonly how to, you will frequently see across the internet. People like to be learning all of the time. They like to know that they are going to find some information, and the words how or how to tell the audience that they're going to receive that information if they watch or read the content provided. You could also use what, why, when, how. If you're presenting a case study, this format is ideal for your presentation title. Here's the format. So it would be how A got to B. So you need to make sure that A and B are far apart. It's a journey going from A to B. So try and make sure that the B is relatable to your audience. You know, they have to want to get to the B, and also try and make sure the A is where your audience is currently at or related to their interests of where they currently are, and then your presentation or report would take them on that journey from the A to the B. So it wouldn't be, for example, make friends and build connections. Obviously everybody wants to do that, but it's not a hugely enticing title. Dale Carnegie's famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, far more enticing. It's telling the audience that they're going to learn how they can become more popular and also how they can influence their social crowd. So, promise them something valuable. How to is the most common way of starting a benefit title. Evoke concern, coming back to the pain and pressure points. So rather than just banking processes improvement, it could be the hidden flaws in current banking practices. So again, the audience will be thinking, do I know what those flaws are? Have I seen them? Have I noticed them? Or have they been overlooked? Okay, so it would make them want to listen to your presentation. Now on the right you have some other words that you can use to evoke concern. For example, issues, problems, signals, alarming, effects, and impact. I really like the alarming one. It suggests that alarms are going off and you have to take notice. But choose whichever one is most suitable for your content. Try this formula. Okay, so number or trigger word, adjective, keyword, promise. For example, rather than just bathing dogs instructions, what you could use instead is how to bathe a dog in 5 simple steps, build bonds with your dog at bath time, or 3 unbelievable ways you never knew to bathe your dog. All of these are getting more interesting. And another one that we can have is example info on ways to sell your house. Okay, now there's probably lots of articles and videos about this, but rather than just very simply info, you could change it to top tips for selling your house, or why selling houses can be difficult, or even how to effortlessly sell your home in less than 24 hours. Being humans, we always like to find the simplest way of doing things, so the word effortlessly could be the most enticing part of this sentence title. So, some top tips for compelling titles. Think outside the box. Try and be creative rather than just very normal, like everybody usually is stating exactly what it is. Think outside the box and use creativity. Illustrate the problem and also the potential solution where possible. Add some compelling adjectives. I think this is the key, and I've given you quite a few through this presentation so far in the yellow boxes. Avoid noun strings. So this relates to thinking outside the box. Don't just state exactly what it is, be creative. Avoid being concise as well. Try and keep it open and broad wherever possible, because the reader will be looking at the title from their subjective viewpoint, and if you leave it broad, you're going to bring more audience into your net and entice them to look at your content. So, be creative. Now, the avoiding noun strings. Now, sometimes we do pile up the nouns to save space. I've done it, you've done it, everybody has done it. We want to try and get everything into that title. But by doing so, it can be a little bit confusing for the reader. So try and reorder the words so that they make sense without making the reader disentangle them. So you've got to find a happy medium between too many nouns thrown in to one title. Try and make it at least readable so they can digest it and completely understand or get a good grip or grasp of what it's going to contain. For example, instead of staff wellbeing work survey results, which is a full noun string, you could have detailed insight from staff surveys on workplace well-being. Says the same thing, but a lot nicer and a lot clearer for the recipient. So, untangle your nouns to make your meaning clearer, and be descriptive and show the benefits. So let them know what the goal of the presentation is, state the benefits as early on as possible in the title, but also perhaps at the very beginning of your presentation or report also. For example, instead of banking compliance standards, you could have our strategy to enhance compliance standards in banking operations. So try and create a catchy and clear short statement for your PPT title. Maybe you would like to pause the video and do that now and try and think, which presentation will I be delivering in the near future? How can I make it more catchy and enticing? Maybe brainstorm a few, write them all down, and then revisit it maybe a few hours later or even the next day, and hopefully your subconscious will have driven some creativity as that title creation is at the back of your mind. So be creative with it. Now, think better. The rule of three. I mentioned the rule of three earlier, and in practice it is an extremely strong number. You could have the 3 wise monkeys, the 3 little pigs, the 3 kingdoms, rock, paper, scissors, stop, look, listen. So really do try and understand how powerful it is. You'll see in life in general, there are very many groups of 3, even traffic lights. Veni, vidi, vici. Tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them. It's a very powerful structure to use. Wherever you can, try and use 3s. A writing principle suggests that a trio of events or characters is more humorous, satisfying, or effective than other numbers. Also, the audience is more likely to remember information conveyed as having 3 combines both brevity and rhythm, with having the smallest amount of information to create a pattern. And finally, it makes the author or speaker appear knowledgeable while being both simple and catchy. Okay, so there are 3 reasons demonstrating the rule of 3, but it is more memorable for the reader to remember 3 things rather than more. Now, writing powerful bullet points. Rather than lots of text, try and split things into bullet points. They're used as mini titles or subheadings in many situations, but it'll also guide the reader and give them brevity and promise of the content that they are absorbing. Think of a bullet point as a mini headline. Highlight key elements to understanding the key points. Try and keep them simple and concise, but also readable. Try and keep them theme related and parallel. I'll talk to you about that in a moment, but also try and keep them symmetrical. Okay, you want them to look good on the page, but you also want them to sound good when they're being read out. So, numbers or bullets. If your action items need to take place in a specific order, use numbered lists rather than bullets. Okay, that's if they're coming one after the other. For example, how to give your dog a bath. Number 1, place a shower cap on your dog's head. 2, give him his rubber ducky to provide emotional security. And 3, gently bathe your dog, avoiding getting water in his big sad eyes. Okay, now, as I mentioned earlier, you want to keep them symmetrical, so don't mix and match the structures of them. So, for example, if you read there, you'll see adopting a dog will make you popular with dog lovers, you'll be famous for having an adorable pet, filled with pride as you walk your furry friend. Now, it's not too bad, but it doesn't really have a rhyme to it. You want to make it more memorable. So perhaps you could write it like this. Adopting a dog will make you popular with dog lovers, famous for having an adorable pet, and proud as you walk your furry friend. So as you can see on the left, all I've done is replace those words in red to make it more rhythmical as people read it, which again makes it more memorable. Now, punctuation with bullet points. This is something that I get asked a lot. Do you need capital letters? Does it need to be proper sentences? Do I need a full stop at the end of each? And to be honest, it depends on the structure. For example, a list in which each point is a complete sentence. Okay, so the managing director made 3 comments about using information technology. Now here, they're full sentences, so they need a capital letter at the beginning and a full stop at the end. You'll see each bullet point is a full sentence. That's one way that you could do it. Or you could use a continuous sentence. For example, if you want to keep your office tidy, please remember to put your rubbish in the bin, clean up after you make the tea, and take your food out of the fridge. Now, this way isn't so common and it can get a bit messy, so I don't advise you to use it unless you specifically want to. But as you can see, you have a semicolon at the end of each bullet point. So it's a continuous sentence, but when you're creating another bullet point, you definitely need to add a semicolon. And if the word "and" is coming afterwards, have it on the line, the previous line, rather than having a bullet point beginning with the word "and." But here you can see, apart from those semicolons, it is a complete sentence going all the way through to the full stop at the end. Okay, now the third and probably most common is a list. For example, every good office should have a kettle, a microwave, a fridge. Now, you could have the word and then the full stop at the end. To be honest though, it's not very common and it looks a bit ugly. It's better not to have any punctuation, just have what it is for each bullet point. It's far neater. Okay. So, I hope that has been beneficial and useful for you. Please do practice writing your titles. Try and think of how to make them more catchy. And some of the adjectives, especially in the yellow boxes that I've given you today, maybe jot some of them down that you like and try and use them in your next presentation or report. That's it from me. I look forward to seeing you next time. All the best. Bye for now. Welcome back. So in this module, we're going to be looking at how to write self-assessment performance evaluations. let's jump straight in. Performance reviews can be nerve-wracking for many people, as we don't usually like evaluating ourselves, or it can be different to put pen to paper when we need to. There's three main areas that you should be focusing on when you're preparing them and also when you're writing them. If you stick to these as a rule of thumb, the content is always going to be beneficial to you and also whoever you're providing it to. The first one, obviously, what to keep doing. What have you done that has contributed to your accomplishments or perhaps even helped you to develop strong working relationships? Also, what to stop doing. Is there anything that you've been doing that has negatively affected how your peers or supervisors perceive your performance, or any other things that you know are hindering your performance? Most importantly, though, what to start doing. So perhaps you've performed a SWOT analysis and you know that there are some things that you're not doing right now that you need to be doing in the future. So when you've thought about all of those, and before you begin writing, try and really find out how this self-evaluation will be used. Who's going to be looking at it? Is it just a standard procedure at a specific time, or will your boss be using it to perhaps write your performance review? Will it be brought into play when you're considering a pay rise or a bonus? How in-depth does it need to be, and does it need any data? Do you have to back up what you've suggested, implied, or stated in your review? And will you need to provide analytics to show or display the figures relating to that? By knowing this, it'll give you a solid starting point and ultimately affect how you proceed to write the review. Something else that would be great to do in advance of beginning writing is to note down your accomplishments. Now, these could be your personal accomplishments, these could have been projects that you've completed, but try and brainstorm and create a list of everything that you've done that has been beneficial. Include everything that you could possibly think of, and then if you need to, you can whittle down that list to the main essentials, or even prioritize them, putting obviously the most important ones at the top of the list. Include the things that you're most proud of, but do prioritize the ones that brought the most value to your company. Gather as many analytics as you can also. It'll give the meat and bones and credibility to your report. So try and quantify everything wherever possible, rather than just saying, I increased sales or I increased customer retention. Try and give a percentage wherever you can, or a figure. This short extra time that you take to do some detailed analysis before writing will pay off by solidifying the value of your accomplishments. Now also, don't forget about the struggles. We all have challenges at work, and bosses and investors know this. Your self-appraisal shouldn't just be saying how great you are and how well you've done. It should also list the struggles or the challenges and how you've overcome them. This is a truly professional growth trait that employers definitely like to see. And so, whilst you recognize the on-job challenges, be comprehensive about them, but also explain the ways and the effort that you put in to enable you to overcome them. So, narrow down your accomplishments. Now that you have the complete list, you can whittle it down. Wherever possible, also align it with your manager's or team goals. Perhaps your company has a company culture, and some of the accomplishments or things you've done or ways you've done them really do resonate with the company culture or the way that your bosses like you to work. So align them with exactly what you've done. It's important to include this information so your manager can clearly see how you've contributed and that you're contributing in the same manner and along the same lines as the company would like you to. When you're writing, Stay positive when describing your challenges. Don't moan about the challenges and try and write them in a positive light. A challenge is a great word as opposed to the word problem, purely for this reason. You don't talk about problems, you talk about challenges. So make sure you're not using the word problem in your content. Here you can see some examples. A bad example. I failed to reach several deadlines. Now that's very negative. You're using the word failed. Avoid it to not become equated to it. What this means is if you're writing the word failed in your self-review, then you're sort of implying that you fail a lot. So change it. The wording really matters. You could change it to, for example, several missed deadlines helped me identify my time management challenges, creating daily task lists to help me stay on track. Also, keep the focus on you. Don't play the blame game by passing the blame to somebody else, even if it's true. For example, your part of the project may have been delayed as a result of an inconsistency within departments, or perhaps one of your colleagues didn't provide the required information. Now, this is not the time and the place to discuss that. If that is the case, and it may well be, it would be better to discuss this quietly, in private, with your manager, but not in your self-review. You could, if you have to, write it in the first person. For example, there was a delay in the receipt of the information that I required. However, I managed to turn it around and I was still able to meet the deadline. So put it in the third person, don't point any fingers at anybody else, and keep it all focused on you. Don't forget to ask for growth opportunities as well. Now, even though it's reviewing what you've done, you could also, within it, ask for things that you would like to do. Perhaps if you're doing the review for 2024, but you know you'd like to be doing things in 2025 and the opportunities are available, this is a great time for you to do it. So even if your boss didn't specifically request it, go ahead and make your pitch to get that further training or certification, or even register for perhaps an upcoming conference. Your boss will undoubtedly appreciate your enthusiasm, your forward thinking, and desire to amp up your skill set. Okay, so here I've made a list of self-evaluation do's and don'ts. So I'm going to go through this list and I'll read them to you in case you're looking on a mobile device and the words are a little bit too small. So first one. Do incorporate feedback you've received from others. So if any managers have praised you, if any clients have praised you especially, and also maybe even your other team members, put that in. Any great feedback, make sure that you include it. Also, do prioritize. Bosses are busy. If they have many of these reviews to go through, you want to make sure that the most important things are at the beginning, just in case they get sidetracked or have their attention drawn away mid-reading through your review. Another thing that not many people do, and it's understandable why, self-reviews are quite a personal thing, but wherever you can, try and get a second opinion. Maybe you and a colleague get on really well together and you can read each other's reviews and get second opinion on it that way. Or even perhaps a family friend or husband, wife, etc. Okay, so 2 points for the don'ts. Now, don't just make a list. A lot of people sometimes make a bullet-pointed list of accomplishments that doesn't show much effort on your part. Try and take care in it. Take pride in it. Write it thoughtfully, and if you can, wherever you can, perhaps even make it into a bit of a journey as well for the reader. Most importantly, make sure there's no typos in it, make sure the grammar, the vocabulary is correct. As soon as they see any spelling mistakes or if the layout is messy, again, this is your self-review, so it reflects on you. if there's spelling mistakes in your own self-review, well, what you're basically saying is that you are not completely organised or thorough. So do be careful about that. Make sure you proofread, check it, and check it again before you finalise it. Okay, now here are a few sentences that you can use directly in your own review if you would like to. You can change them if you wish. These are just a guideline, a template for you to use if you so wish. So let's go through each of them and I'll read them again to you. I take pride in delivering high quality banking services, ensuring accuracy and efficiency in daily transactions. I frequently volunteer to take on additional responsibilities, such as leading compliance audits or customer service initiatives. I promote a team-oriented work environment by sharing best practices for customer engagement and regulatory adherence. I've exceeded my loan origination goal by 15%, contributing to the branch's overall success. I've decreased customer complaints by 20% through proactive issue resolution and improved communication. I consistently challenge myself to achieve higher sales targets and develop innovative approaches to meet them. Okay, you'll notice a few of these have percentages there, which is absolutely fantastic. Maybe some of these words or roles aren't necessarily in your job remit, so change them. But try and use the vocabulary, a similar vocabulary and positive wordage, so that you will let the reader or the manager, whoever's reading it, know that you take your job seriously. You're a professional person, you like to get things done, and you succeed when you do it. Here are some more. The first sentences are in relation to planning ability. So the first bullet point, develops effective action plans for achieving quarterly revenue targets. The second, creates flexible contingency plans to address fluctuating interest rates and market conditions. And the third, successfully puts loan origination strategies into action, resulting in a 10% increase in approvals. Now, when it comes to reviews as well, it's all about working well with your team and cooperating with others. So you're going to need to show this also. So the next three here we have encourages collaboration among relationship managers to identify cross-selling opportunities, or shares innovation techniques for improving customer satisfaction and retention, or perhaps builds strong relationships with clients by proactively addressing their financial needs. So yeah, there's quite a few good words in there that you could use. Pick the ones that resonate with you and that you can use in your reports next time. When it comes to your communication skills, here we have effectively communicates expectations for achieving quarterly sales targets, excels in facilitating team discussions to improve loan approval workflows, keeps meetings action-oriented by setting clear objectives, such as enhancing operational efficiencies. These words like effectively, expectations, facilitating, enhancing, these are the key words that you want to be using, as they're extremely positive and powerful. The next section we have delegating skills. So maybe your job role entails you to delegate to other people. So the first one here, empowers team members with clear authority and resources to meet loan processing deadlines, or helps employees gain visibility by assigning them to high-profile client projects, or encourages team members to propose solutions to recurring customer service challenges. So if you're in any form of managerial role, these would be great for you. Now, when it comes to innovation and creativity, which is another key element of business, here we have another 6. The first one, I regularly look for ways to streamline loan application processes, reducing approval times by 10%. I approach customer service challenges with innovative solutions, such as introducing new tools to enhance efficiency. I frequently collaborate with colleagues to brainstorm creative strategies for cross-selling financial products. When faced with a deadline in new account openings, I implemented a referral program that increased growth by 15%. I consider client feedback to find mutually beneficial solutions, improving overall satisfaction rates. I quickly adapt to regulatory changes and implement updated procedures effectively. Okay, now you might only use one or two of those depending on your job role. If you're client facing, the second from bottom one there about the feedback, that could be used across the board. If you're listening to your customers, taking their feedback into account and actioning it, this is exactly what management typically like to see. If it comes to growth and development and you want to show that you're continually progressing, you could use these. I'm committed to my personal growth and regularly set goals to enhance my financial knowledge and skills. I have completed advanced training in risk management to improve my ability to assess loan applications. I actively seek mentorship opportunities to learn from senior banking officials. I have long-term vision of becoming branch manager and am working on leadership skills to achieve it. I learn quickly and adapt to new financial products and services to better serve clients. I value continuous learning and regularly attend industry seminars to stay updated on market trends. So here you're actually stating that you're doing your own personal development growth, which is great to hear, but also you're being more specific, not only about just what you're doing, but why you're doing it. So hopefully, when your manager is reading this, next time there is some training event coming up, and they're looking for people to join it, hopefully your name will be at the top of the list because it's in your review. Avoid vagueness. Often in self-reviews, people don't go into too much detail. There isn't enough, it doesn't clearly explain it. Sometimes it barely touches the surface. So be as specific as you possibly can with the good things. Perhaps you want to mention some of the challenges or things that didn't go so well, which still might not be resolved. We don't live in a perfect world, as we all know, so perhaps you want to be a little bit vague with those, but definitely with the good things, all of the positive things. Be as detailed as you possibly can and fill out your review using those. But don't neglect to mention the challenges that have occurred. But as I mentioned earlier, don't blame anybody, don't moan about it, but you can suggest that there are solutions, and maybe you have some solutions to rectify it. That is something positive that you could put in your review. Vague language, though, typically weakens writing because it leaves guessing game for the reader, and they're not therefore able to fully concentrate on your ideas. One characteristic of this vagueness is that it's related to the degree of formality, or rather informality, of the situation. The less formal the situation, the more vagueness there would be. But with a report, you want to be more detailed. This is quite a formal situation, so vagueness shouldn't play such a large part in a scenario like this. Common words that signal a vague writing style are listed here. Now, this isn't a complete list, but if you're using these words, be very careful. Things like roughly, almost, nearly, or seem, about, like, things, stuff, some. These are very vague, very ambiguous, and you're leaving it up to the reader's interpretation of the context to specify exactly what degree you are referring to. So try and avoid these if you can. They're also fairly informal words. Replace these vague words wherever you can. So instead of big, you could use a better adjective like colossal or generous or gigantic. I'm not going to read through all of these, but you can in your own time and choose which ones you think would be best or the best fit for whatever you're describing. Good is another one. How good is good? Good is very subjective. So try and pick the ones. Was it efficient? Was it favourable? Was it reliable or profitable or satisfying? Super, even. Try and find the one that best fits the context. Same thing for bad. Bad, again, very subjective. Was it faulty? Was it grim? Was it unpleasant? Or was it wrong? Which type of bad are you referring to? Be more specific. With things and stuff, rather than using stuff, people can get confused. As well as not knowing the degree that you're trying to portray, they might not know what things or stuff you're actually referring to. There could be many things that it could possibly be. So if you're talking about accomplishments or achievements or experiences or concerns, make sure you use the correct adjective or noun to pinpoint it and also describe it. Get as well, get in touch with, but also with regards to communication. You have communicate with or contact by telephone or sent an email to or write to. But get can also mean to evolve or change. So change into or come to be or grow. But when you get something, it could also be a purchase. So it could be acquiring or attaining or collecting. Check for synonyms, and you can see there at the very bottom I've given you a website link to thesaurus.com. Now, I'm a native English speaker. I use this every day, though. If my writing is a little bit too bland, in my opinion, I try and make it a little bit more interesting for the reader by using more colourful adjectives, and thesaurus.com is a great way to do it. Another great way, if you're using Word documents, is to highlight your word that you want to find a replacement for. For example, you could want to find a replacement for the word good. So you highlight that word, press Shift and F7 on your keyboard, and you'll have a thesaurus that opens up on the right-hand side, so you can directly replace the word by clicking on it. So try that, thesaurus.com, and also Shift and F7 in a Word package, and that's on the Mac and also on the PC. Okay, I hope that has been beneficial for you. Now, I've given you a lot of words there, a lot of sentences. I don't expect you to remember them all, I don't expect you to use them all, but please do go through each slide, look through the sentences, look through the phrases and the words, and use the ones that resonate with you. Perhaps you make a list of them somewhere else that you can refer to as and when you need them. Okay, that's it from me then for now. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Many thanks.